All right, the SPR, not the original military designation known as Special Purpose Receiver. We're removed and stepping beyond that, or next to it, or aside, whatever. There's a deviation here. Really more a special purpose rifle or accurized AR. Recce rifle got grossly saturated, despite how suiting that is. While it's still acceptable, we'll just continue to refer to it as an SPR for convenience sake. Now, regardless, as purely and only ever civilians, here's our take on it. As much as you may consider it cringe or copycatting or piggybacking, which it kind of is, a lot of civilians really get their means from military practice. The day that we have tanks, that'll be irrefutable. But with the adoption by the American populace, I think it tends to have a more significant driving force toward the climate and condition of the firearms culture. The people having so much impact and proliferation on any given subject, with influence and general effect, that these concepts and practice return to the military full circle back again, and so the cycle perpetuates, typically positive. Now, this SPR has lots of explanations and definitions all over the internet, but it seems that we're mostly in agreement that it's a viable assembly and what its criteria consists of, but an accurized fighting rifle nonetheless. That's what we're talking about here today. A rifle setup that's tailored to and capable of respectable accuracy, which we'll bracket as 2 MOA, just for conversation's sake, and considering engagements out to 500 yards-ish, that we'll bracket as medium range. Now, in order to achieve those two considerations, we got to think about glass. Magnification anywhere from 2 to 10, 2 to 12, maybe even accommodating something like a 3 to 12. Some may consider 4 to 16-ish to be sacrilege, only excused by the requirement of a secondary optic. What we would consider to be an intermediate range with an intermediate caliber. That's the kind of role that we're playing with here. An important note is how this distinguishes itself apart from some type of bench rest gun or 2000s era range toy. That being that this will be outfitted and used in a fashion that has aspects of general purpose use while favoring further ranges. Other criteria that support this role will be instruments for passive aiming given the influx of public night vision possession, including but not exclusively a secondary aiming capability of some sort, typically a red dot or laser illuminator unit. Equally, if not more important, a bipod is extremely helpful, but may not be considered necessary by some. Now, the cherry on top is a suppressor. Super helpful, and I gotta cast a little flack on you if you're not shooting with a suppressor at this point in time. Like, by now, that's just like another piece of the gun. Like, that's just what it should be like. You have a barrel, you have a bolt carrier group, an optic, sling, light, suppressor. It's, as far as I'm concerned, I would say it's high on the priority list, but maybe not a bust without it. Now, in our opinion and conceptual construct, the other prerequisites that help round out this rifle is going to be a sling and a light. Whatever sling tickles your fancy, that's fine. I would highly recommend a 2-point configuration. That's kind of the standard nowadays, as opposed to a single point or like a 3-point, which, I mean, even when I started getting into things, I think I ran into maybe one person with a 3-point. But now this is something that I condone, the 2-point and being standard, single and 3 just kind of being obsolete. That's great. Next, for the light, if you're starting from scratch and you just want bare minimum, I would recommend a Streamlight HLX. They're affordable and obtainable, there's good aftermarket support for them, but if you can choose a preference, something with higher candela, being as that this is a rifle intended for longer ranges, and you got to be able to see what you're trying to shoot, and in most of the world, it's dark half of the time. It reminds me of 30 Days of Night, so, you know, vampires and shit, right? They're a problem too. Now, anecdotally, as much of a trend as this has become, I think it's a positive trend. And it is a trend. It will lose coverage and discussion as the next wave of preparedness becomes inflamed. Probably some drone shit, to be honest. I'm calling it right now. Now, here in North Dakota, it's something that was kind of an adaptation based on necessity because of our locale and landscape and topography. I mean, if you look around, like, the nearest piece of cover is something like 400 yards away. And You know, if you're some sort of living organism seeking refuge, you're probably going to flock to that cluster of trees or the slough bottom, you know, ditch sides, something like that. So it was just a natural accommodation for us to have magnification on our rifles. Really, because we kind of felt like we had to be able to see stuff that was even out here. Now, I think it's a beautiful thing to see the importance of not only magnification, but higher quality and more thoughtful approaches to having capability at longer ranges, with this falling over people and falling onto people, because with this push and this movement, which like many other trends will probably only be periodic, still will serve the user and this community even better with value and capability and practicality, as opposed to the trends of Gucci Glocks, ridiculous anodizing, and super fast range shit, which I've been guilty. I like the pragmatic shift that's occurring among this niche sect of gun owners, because it then assists itself to having a more prepared and capable American populace that will then, therefore, also push the envelope for whatever the next advancement or trend may be. Like a pyramid stacking, the perpetual gain, the synergy of it, really. It's the combinations of everything before it that help make the next thing even better. So, in shameless vanity fashion, here's mine.